da silenziosa I telefoni. The program In Focus Radical Repair will begin shortly. Please silence all phones and devices. Benvenuto sul palco. Please welcome to the stage, Stefano Boeri.
Good evening and welcome to Triennale di Milano. Thanks to the World Around and the Fondation Cartier for, let's say, thanks for giving us the opportunity to gather here today some of the best designers, architects, and creatives of the scene to reflect on the historical responsibility and complicity that architecture and its related fields have over the current climate crisis, and to ask ourselves what the role of architecture and design can play in creating, inventing, and enacting radical forms of repair. Triennale started its own reflection on these themes a few years ago with its 22nd international exhibition titled Broken Nature, Design Takes on Human Survival, but curated by Paolo Antonelli, senior curator in the Department of Architecture and Design at MoMA in New York. Broken Nature, as you know, invited scholars, designers, and artists to return to the natural world the resources extracted, manipulated, and compromised by centuries of human colonization. The exhibition highlighted the concept of restorative design and celebrated design's ability to promote the importance of creative practice in designing reparation when necessary through objects, concepts, and new systems. Well, 4 years later, we believe that a fundamental theme, such as that of asking ourselves how to repair the damage, mend the tears, return what has been extracted, can be declined, as you will do today in this forum, according with two main topics. The first concerns the risk that the concept of repair could be interpreted as an attitude of medicalization, of arrogant distance towards the world of life. At a distance of only 4 years from Broken Nature, this noble ethics of compensation, of reparation, suddenly could seem not to us a little bit excessively interconnected with the positional dualism that has separated our life as the hegemonic species from the other lives and the other lives and the changing phenomena of the world. In the space of just a few years, humanity, as we know, has experienced 4 great upheavals: fundamental terrorism, the collapse of financial markets, pandemics, and wars between peoples are in fact different and extreme ways through which we might see how the new emerging question is whether it's still possible to think of ourselves as living species capable of inhabiting the world on the basis of a principle of cognitive and cultural distancing from the world itself. To question where it is still possible to continue to exercise the assumption of a dualism between human and non-human, between culture and nature, between human technologies and natural phenomena, between the anthropic environment and natural environment, which is accompanying the development of human knowledge for many centuries. And nothing more powerful than the pandemic, a microorganism that multiplies the bodies of individual members of the human species, could bring us abruptly face to face with the fragility of our clumsy attempt to think of ourselves as different from nature and from the vegetable animal manifestation that we have tried so hard to keep outside our bodies, outside our houses, outside our cities that have been built over the centuries as exclusively mineral environments. Overcoming the dualism between the human sphere and the natural sphere, between technology and nature, is, after all, an approach that has been confirmed and even strengthened by the extraordinary exhibition on forest that Fondation Cartier and Hervé Chandès have promoted and which we are currently hosting here. Even just the title of this amazing exhibition, which hosts the vision and works of many artists from the indigenous population of the forest of Amazonia, Paraguay, and New Mexico, "We Are Forests," is an invitation to overcome the dualism between the human sphere and the natural sphere, and to move our species' point of view on the world from the pedestal of a dominant culture. A second reason, which leads us to think that the theme of reparation, of restitution, can today, above all, be declined in the direction of an investigation into the growing inequalities in the contemporary world, is a profound crisis of the rhetoric of globalization. We have now understood that the brief period in human history in which we were under the illusion that the power of technological innovation, the boom of the digital sphere, could reduce and even erase not only geographical distances, but even social differences and race and gender inequalities, is now behind us, is now over. With the gradual evaporation of the very concept of globalization, the issue of inequality has powerfully returned to the center of contemporary history. One important reason for this is that it's fueled by three major energies, in a way global energies, which are redefining the differences in the biospheres of our planet. The first is global warming and the vast climate migrations resulting from it. The second powerful energy is artificial intelligence and the immense transformation in the organization of labor. Just yesterday, we hosted here Chen Guifan, Chinese writer, who told us his point of view on the risk and opportunities created by AI. But just reading The Maniac, the latest beautiful book by Benjamin Labatteur, helps us to understand what a profound and powerful transformation and transfiguration of our relationship with the world we are heading towards. The third energy, not yet completely visible, but extraordinarily powerful, because it arises from the naked life of billions of individuals of our species, is the rejection of biological determinism in institutional codes of gender identification, and the emergence of plural forms of expression in the lives of millions of individuals. After all, the loss of effectiveness of any rigid binary organization, city-country, wealth-poverty, center-periphery, public-private, material-immaterial, believer-no-believer, male-female, health-disease, only confirms that the issue of growing inequality in the present condition of humanity calls for a plurality of perspectives and interpretative keys. The contemporary world, its cities, suburbs, informal settlement, large urbanized country areas, agricultural and mountain hamlets, all the living and working spaces of the human species are traversed today by multiple and at the same time contradictory drives, which tend to exacerbate racial, social, religious, and cultural differences. This includes a fundamental difference related to individual social mobility dynamics. Undoubtedly, in contrast, with no doubt, in contrast to the growing phenomenon of the migration of bodies between different and distant areas of the planet, what is being curbed today in the city of the world is primarily the social and economical mobility of individuals, that is to say, their ability and opportunity to acquire a different educational qualification, change social status, improve their economic and cultural condition, and make transition across the spectrum of gender identity over the course of their lives. For all this reason, we have decided to put the theme of inequalities at the center of the MAPS project and vision that will give life to our next international exhibition in Milano, which will start in May 2025. Aware as we are that the project of policy of social and environmental restitution or reparation that does not take care to avoid increasing the growing inequalities in human societies risks to become counterproductive and harmful in achieving the same objectives, however ethically right, correct, that it poses. The forum that we host today, your contribution could not be more coherent and consistent with this project. This is why I want to invite you here today to help us to prepare this great reflection on inequalities, to become our partner in a project that for 6 months during the next Triennale Expo from November to November 2025 will make Milano the place in which to collect cartography, thoughts and projects pertaining to the major new issue of inequality between individuals of human species in the contemporary world. Thank you so much, and I wish you a successful job. Thank you.
Benvenuta sul palco. Please welcome to the stage Beatrice Grenier.
Thank you, Stefano. Good evening, everybody. My name is Béatrice Grenier. I'm Director of Curatorial Affairs at the Fondation Cartier pour l'Art Contemporain. Architecture gives shape to the world in which we live. It is responsible for configuring at once the most private forms of experience of our lives, as well as the most public ways in which we gather publicly in society. As such, it is the responsibility of cultural institutions, and not only of architecture, but also of cultural institutions by way of programming to bring this contemporary discipline to the fore and critically look at both its history as well as its present and further contribute to radically reinventing existing and future constructions, both theoretically and from a practical standpoint. The Triennale Milano is a unique example both in Europe as well as internationally as an institution that has positioned architecture side by side with art and design to evaluate the ways in which the disciplines cohabitate and together shape contemporary culture. So thank you to President Stefano Boeri and his team for their support and contribution in organizing In Focus Radical Repair. Considering the city of Milan and the historical role it has played in shaping the world of design and as well as its continued relevance in shaping the contemporary discourse of design, it's of truly utmost significance that we are today inaugurating a series of programming as part of a new global cultural partnership between the world around and the Fondation Cartier. In Focus Radical Repair is conceived as an opportunity to think of how to repair architecture, which is to say, how can we face the seemingly impossible task of continuing to build within a climate crisis? The program asks leading voices of the design practice to share how designers and architects who are all individually engaged in thinking radically about how to reinvent architecture, in sharing with us tonight what this new form of architecture might be. It poses this question globally and invites voices from Japan, China, Pakistan, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Bolivia, the US, and Western Europe to speak to how we might together consider a radical architecture of the future. So you will hear that beyond new forms of building, of augmenting, reversing, culture and imagination are stipulated as both possible but also necessary avenues of radically changing how architecture can shape the future. Thank you very much.
Benvenuta sul palco. Please welcome to the stage, Beatrice Galilee.
Hello. Hi to everybody. I'm going to make this very quick because I know you're all dying to hear from Yasmeen. I just want to welcome you all, those of you who are not aware of the world around. We are an organization itinerant that we create programs both in New York and around the world. We aim to create an international and intergenerational global community around the world's most progressive, exciting design, architecture, and all connected disciplines, with a specific focus on environmental and social justice. As you all know, we're gathered here specifically to discuss radical repair, and I did want to just thank so much to all of the World Around supporters and everybody watching online. I know we have people watching on Design and watching in their homes, so welcome, and please let us know where you're watching from. I also want to thank, of course, Fondation Cartier for their partnership, the Triennale Milano for their collaboration, and all of you for being here this evening. Our first session begins with the roots of radical repair, the systems. Our keynote speaker is the inimitable Professor Yasmeen Lari, who is joining us from Pakistan. We're very honored to have her here today. She's generously sharing her time, her leadership, and her cause with all of us. She will be speaking to her extraordinary work at the Heritage Foundation of Pakistan in providing relief to vulnerable communities and rewriting a new role for architects with all respect to humanitarian and relief projects. This session will have 4 speakers back to back. We won't be seeing you again until the break. I really hope that you enjoy the program, and I ask you to give a very, very warm welcome to Professor Yasmeen Lari. Thank you so much.
Benvenuta sul palco. Please welcome to the stage, Yasmeen Lari.
Well, buonasera a tutti. I bring you greetings from Pakistan. This remarkable conference convened by the World Around and Fondation Cartier in this amazing historic city of Milano, with its beautiful, discreet, elegant environments and wonderfully designed products that would take your breath away. This is the city of Politecnico di Milano. More than, that's the one that took the brave step of awarding the coveted honorary degree to a woman in its history of 158 years, and that too, to a woman of color, and labeled me with my favorite title, Architect for the Poorest of the Poor. So good that Professor Dr. Ilaria Valente and Professor Cassandra Cozza, along with students of the university, are here today who work dedicatedly to further the cause of my zero-carbon methodologies. They're the first university that did that. And I'm delighted to be here because the topic is concerned with the health of the planet, which to me reads as repair the planet and at the same time heal humanity. For me, both must go hand in hand. And also to achieve success in endeavors such as this, it is the power of design that will transform people's lives. The more meager the resources, the more attention is needed to create well-designed environments. For me, it is such a privilege to be here among a gathering of eco-warriors, conscious of the damage caused to the planet, and wishing to moderate that harm that has been inflicted so far. So thank you, Beatrice Galilee and Beatrice Grenier, and your 2 wonderful, sensitive organizations for making me part of this really timely discourse, and for your hospitality and care lavished on me, a traveler from far-off lands. I believe each one of us around the world has to play her role, Global North by abandoning capitalist modes of eco-indulgence, excessive consumption, and eco-bigotry. And equally, the Global South, that must focus on the ills that threaten development, poor governance, social injustices, and high poverty levels, to name a few, factors that restrict human development and advancement of human values. A couple of years ago, I had said in my manifesto published in London's Design magazine, and I believe Nat Barker is here from Design, and I said, today we live in an era that is beset with fragmentation and disruption. It is a world ravaged by rising poverty levels and increasing disparities, depletion of the Earth's resources, and climate change impact. Global warming, greenhouse gas emissions, recurring disasters, climate emergencies, and climate migrants, conflict-impelled refugees, the displaced and the homeless, all require innovative design solutions. To deal with these challenges, we need social activists and eco-champions to fashion humanistic, inclusive environments driven by ecological considerations that would tread lightly on the planet, at the same time fulfill the rights-based unmet needs of those living on the margins. We forget there are so many that are there. The capitalist industrialized world promotes excessive consumption, and in the pursuit of wealth and personal gain, tends to turn a blind eye towards a plethora of ills that afflict our societies, all of us, as well as injustices suffered by the weak and the marginalized. We might do well to hark back to the sayings of ancient Greek philosophers such as Plato, that justice is far more important than the acquisition of wealth. And that, and I quote, excessive wealth disrupts and destroys moral integrity and internal harmony in individuals and societies, unquote. Persons such as myself, belonging to the Global South, who have seen abject poverty, where 50% of the population lives below the poverty line, and being among the vulnerable frontline states that suffer from recurring disasters. For me, the basis of all development must be good design that incorporates climate resilience for the poorest. Over time, I've understood that it is not only the privileged who have a right to enjoy well-designed environments. The disadvantaged and those that live on the margins need more, not less design, to achieve a better quality of life. Together, we must develop a framework for a totally changed direction for this damaged entity in architectural practice. A majority of us need to relinquish the desire to create imposing megastructures, which have traditionally been commissioned by the likes of the sophisticated Medicis of Florence, the unscrupulous robber barons of colonial powers, the eco-indulgent merchant princes of industrialized revolution, and the present-day multinationals and tech giants that promote high-carbon lifestyles. We are all aware of the damage caused by the colonial industrial-oriented mindset to the Earth's ecosystem due to wasteful and highly consumptive ways of living and building, as well as excessive use of Earth's resources promoted by the unscrupulous capitalist system. Fortuitously, more than at any other time, young architects, as citizens of a changing world, are seeking a divergent course in the practice of architecture. Now, by bestowing the great honor of the Royal Gold Medal on my work in a brave move, the Royal Institute of British Architects, the Prize Committee, and the British monarch have legitimized the path for architects to serve those who live on the borders. They have set a powerful message that architects do not any longer need to vie for the attention of the privileged and the wealthy, but equally be ready to serve humanity. The time has come for a majority of architects and other built environment professionals to play a significant role in healing the planet. On the one hand, that requires that we lower the carbon footprint in all that we create. and on the other, to reach out to serve the vast number of disadvantaged populations. Now, it is ironic that even though belonging to the third world, only after I had brought to a close my career as a successful architect for 36 years, from 2005, recurring disasters in Pakistan forced me to my attention towards the vast marginalized sections of my own country. As a practicing architect, barring a few projects, I also had indulged in an extravagant egotistic journey, which focused on serving the elite of my country. The interaction with poverty-stricken, vulnerable populations forced me to dispense with my hugely inflated ego, as all architects do, obligating me to swallow the bitter pill of humility. Not easy to do that. By sitting at the threshold of the poor, exploring their age-old practices. How have they survived? What have they done? Learning from Pakistan's pre-industrial vernacular heritage, I understood that design is not a standalone activity. It must be underpinned by considerations of social impact and ecological sustainability. Just by working through various disasters that Pakistan has been confronted with, I learned to build by adopting ecologically and socially just methodologies. While my country suffers from many social ills and disadvantages, it also has an array of rich, tangible, intangible, and vernacular heritage, which is an indispensable part of our living and one from which I continue to draw sustenance. As you might be aware, I'm a committed proponent of learning from heritage. I would like to show you a glimpse of the rich heritage that Pakistan possesses. Pakistan is custodian of a diverse heritage ranging from a vast collection of tangible heritage and begins with Bronze Age World Heritage Site of Mohenjo-daro. Then there's Hindu and Buddhist and Sikh remains. There's Sultanate period of 16th century and Mughal period and palaces, gardens, paradisal gardens, and then of course the British colonial period. So a whole array of diverse heritage that we have inherited. And this is a cultural legacy not found in many countries. The intangible heritage has shaped the lives of our people, that is all-pervading, and includes Sufi traditions and spiritualism, folklore and folk traditions, oral history, and diverse crafts, many still being practiced by rural women that have been passed on to them from generation to generation, from mother to mother. And then the vernacular heritage, from where I have learned the use of sustainable materials, local sourcing, ease of handling, economical in use, and one that is based on age-old traditions and wisdoms. So now by devising this barefoot social architecture of Bazaar, I've been able to develop strategies fulfilling the unmet needs of the vast majority in my own country. I found that by focusing on the issue of resilience and sustainability and using locally sourced materials as well as low-impact, low-tech practices through participatory mechanisms, it is possible to develop affordable, climate-resilient rehabilitation, enabling social and ecological justice for climate migrants. That's what the basic challenge for me is today and for my country. So what are the tenets of Bazaar? Bazaar is akin to social engineering for bringing about social change, incorporating environmental, cultural, and technical dimensions, resulting in transformation of mindset from a cycle of dependency to a culture of pride and self-reliance. On the one hand, Bazaar seeks to democratize architecture that provides people with well-being, dignity, and self-esteem. On the other, it unashamedly promotes zero-carbon footprint structures. While working in marginalized communities, I have stumbled upon numerous design opportunities that I never knew existed. And they have been unclaimed before. Nobody has worked on them in the pursuit of fulfilling the exigencies of social and ecological well-being. So I just thought I'd show you this slide. This is something that I researched on and found that UNEP has done all these studies. And you can see the way we build. What are we doing to the environment? the way we are doing our construction today. 40% of all world energy being used by the way we build today. And so many other factors that I think we need to be now very much aware of. So I would like to introduce the 3 materials that I have used in my humanitarian architecture to achieve carbon neutral structures. In the slide, you can see the attributes of such materials as earth, lime, and bamboo. That's all I use. Lime, earth, you know, is a wonderfully versatile material. It's available almost everywhere. Lime is a material that your country, Italy, gifted to the world with the Roman aqueducts and the wonderful alchemy of lime provided in detail by none other than the great master Vitruvius. And bamboo, which sequesters so much carbon that its use makes my structures entirely carbon neutral. So coincidentally, the use of such materials is the very route that needs to be taken if the depletion of the planet's resources are to be forestalled, and if global warming is to be minimized. The route to zero or low ecological footprint. So I'll just show you an example of a non-engineered structure, zero carbon, built in 2011. And we were able to build about 40,000 of similar structures. And we put Pakistan on the map as zero carbon, largest zero carbon structure program. And between 3 years, basically. And you can see no carbon emissions, no trees were felled, so many villages were, covered, and 300,000 people housed. And there are some more of these examples as to how people build themselves by guidance. And then this particular one is all earth. You can see this Pakistan Chula stove is a world-famous one, which is self-built by rural housewives and has been life-transforming, giving dignity and agency to oppressed women. Architecture can do that too, you know. And then, of course, what I want to present today to you is the Great Deluge, 2020 floods. And you can see what a disaster this has been. And 1/3 of Pakistan was entirely submerged. 33 million people have lost, were displaced completely, lost everything. And adding not to the homelessness, but also adding substantially to the figure of 220 million people estimated in to be facing food insecurity and abject poverty around the world. With increasing intensity of disasters, as a consequence, today the number of displaced runs into several millions, as you can see. As we know, since global carbon emissions continue to climb, increasingly climate change is contributing to humanitarian crises and cycles of displacement around the world. It's not only Pakistan, everywhere. So for me, it is paramount that if we wish to repair the planet, simultaneously we should aim for zero poverty. Must do that at the same time. In my view, none of us has a right to sit on any laurels as long as 1 in 10 persons in the world goes hungry every night. At the same time, I believe every disaster is presenting us with the opportunity to aim for zero poverty by creating resilient communities. It is my belief that by my sustainable rehabilitation of millions of those affected can only be met through decolonization and decarbonization of humanitarian assistance. Most of those engaged in the humanitarian field are aware that the international colonial charity model, which treats affected communities as victims and is based on handouts and which operates through clusters or silos, has not provided a sustainable solution. Now, I put it to you that charity, although in good faith, fosters dependency and robs the receiver of self-esteem. Promotion of alien imagery and expensive materials cannot be replaced by the poor. It is culturally, environmentally extremely damaging. Thirdly, lack of appropriate knowledge and tools among communities allows limited access or assistance to be given. Fourthly, women are invariably left behind, even though they are the worst sufferers when the disaster happens or displacement happens. And then lastly, high administrative cost of disbursement aid allows only a fraction to reach affected households. We know that this humanitarianism, which is provided with good intention for providing timely assistance to the displaced, is driven by donor contributions. The funding is controlled by aid-giving agencies through INGOs or NGOs who provide assistance selectively. However, since human living, in my view, is not carried out in silos or compartments, the majority remain vulnerable while their unmet needs remain fulfilled. And so much funding has been spent on this kind of way of doing things. So just wanted to show you what happens when climate change disasters happen. What is the impact? You can see what happens. You become more and more vulnerable every time. Every time a disaster hits, you again have to start from ground zero. It's an impossible state. So on a very large scale now, households, including women and children, face disease, hunger, and homelessness after every disaster becoming more, and as I said, becoming more vulnerable every time. So my effort is to aim for zero poverty by designing disaster preparedness strategies, for example, to avoid displacement, decarbonizing development, utilizing untapped resources, conducting development for the people, by the people. So if you see these guiding principles, I've noted it all down, but it really means that we have to go to the core of the issues and try to see how we can address them. So, and I think the most important thing is designing affordable products using local resources. If we can do that, then we can reach everybody on a really large scale. And then training people from there and getting them to go and help others. And it is really by the people, for the people. It's helping. It's amazing how much progress can be made. It's a kind of humanizing way of working. So then I've devised something called Barefoot Resource Economy. And it's an economic model which fosters decolonized development and humanistic humanitarianism. It's quite opposite to the colonial charity model. It requires that you should rely on people themselves. And so it's all about, barefoot resource economy, and the components, as you can see, are there. Of course, starting off with zero carbon, zero waste, now even zero donors that I'll explain to you, and then that leads to zero poverty. And you can see all that can be done through this whole process, which is relying on entirely the resources that are available there. And I'll just go very quickly into the detail of this, which is that utilizing available resources. So in developing low-cost, sustainable, and affordable options, there are a host of materials that I found to be abundant and are available for use. And you can see a whole list of them that are available, and that's what I'm doing. Then secondly, how do you bring about pride, self-reliance, and zero charity? No charity is needed. Why should we give people charity? Why can't we develop their own capacities so they can do it themselves? So, so far, we've been able to have about 200,000 chulas built, which are this Pakistan chula stove that I showed you. And no charity or funding, entirely self-built, entirely sustainable, requires no help from outsider except the barefoot entrepreneurs of mine who provide guidance at less than €1. And the ones who provide also are becoming millionaires because the number is so vast. And then everything should be affordable, replicable, sustainable. Got to do it if you want to really do it on a mass scale. And we need to do it on a mass scale now. So you can see that all elements that can be self-built and provide safety and disaster resilience to prevent loss and damage. We must see that whatever is built can sustain any kind of disaster. And we know the disasters that will be coming next year even. And then knowledge sharing and capacity building. Training people from there, going ahead, and they share knowledge with others through a structured system. And that's how everybody starts learning how to take care of themselves. So the basis of scaling to help in the remotest villages is the mechanism of training the local people and in sharing the knowledge. And then utilizing people's strengths. Everywhere you'll find people have so much strength, they can do so much if you just provided them the guidance. You don't need outsiders. You need people from there who will go and help others and teach others. And that way, it can spread like anything. So in our strategy, since knowledge sharing mechanism is carried out by the same kind of people as those receiving guidance, the learning occurs at a very fast pace. It is the accompanying attitude of sympathy, solidarity, empathy, and generosity. These are all values that we have learned from the Renaissance times, but somehow been forgotten. And that's made really possible that knowledge sharing could happen among themselves. So I call it by the people, for the people. It's a different kind of strategy. And so if we can just impose these particular kind of tenets, then we can just do it without really seeking much assistance from anywhere else. And anyway, nobody can provide that much assistance because the disaster is so large. How will you help 33 million people? Where will the money come from? So we have to think about what we must do. And then maximizing community strengths. So it's possible to encourage the community coming together. Then I just wanted to very quickly show you the target of 1 million. I want 500,000 families to be rehabilitated every year, 1 million by the end of 2024. And so I designed these two models, the holistic model and the zero donor model. And unfortunately, the holistic model was costing only $150 per family, but there wasn't enough support for it. So I have done this zero donor model, but very quickly, there's this different kind of stages. So this is my holistic model where you get almost everything like basic needs in stage 1, you get food security in stage 2, you get disaster mitigation, and so on and so forth. So really everything can be done very quickly within about 3 to 4 months. And you can see how the construction of houses will also take place. I mean, it's very quickly. The prefab bamboo construction, that goes very, very fast. They learn quite quickly, and then, they decorate them. They personalize them themselves. So this is how it happens. Every structure becomes unique. And within 5-6 months, you see that the whole thing is flourishing. Everybody has become really self-reliant. So, but then, as I said, we couldn't get enough support. I couldn't get to my target of 1 million in 2024, so I've designed this zero donor model. And this, you can see, I've got some principles in this. I go quickly, but I think I'm probably running short of time. So again, zero carbon, zero waste, zero donor equals zero poverty. That's the main tenet that we follow. And then there's a mission, it's how you go about doing it, and so on. And it's all been worked out, and we are following it quite closely. And then how does it happen? I mean, this is the 4 stages, and we can put down the time. It's the people's little resources, their savings, which are very, very meager. They are put together, and somehow they manage to go from one stage to the other to the other. And you can see how the stages have been worked out. There's quite a lot of work going on in this way, and I think we'll be able to meet our targets. So you can see the change makers. So many families, women, men, all are working away. All are improving their lives because they've got the guidance how to do it. And this is my barefoot brigades, the core competency. Each one has about 25 more people in its tow, and they are now earning, as you can see, 50,000 rupees, or is it 160 euros per month, which is a princely sum for people who had nothing just a few years ago. And then this is what happened with the barefoot entrepreneurs. After they're trained in a very systematic manner. They're SOPs, they're drawing, they're taught what to do because they must learn to build safe buildings, and they are doing that by themselves. And so there we are. These are the ingredients. Then there's a human resource for self-building. So you can see everybody knows there are local techniques, local things, local materials, and we are maximizing all the strength of local people as to how they can do it. So it's materials that exist, that are there, and they can give you very safe habitat the way you design it. That's where you need good architects to design well. If they are not there, then, of course, you lose it. And then you can see there are so many natural resources. All kinds of resources are available, and nobody has looked at them, from debris to all kind of straws and waste of all kinds that can be used. And that is what gives me this very economical way of building. And there's water, there's ponds that are lying without anything. So food security is number one for us, because that's a big issue. How do you make them food secure, first of all? So we're using everything possible. And then there are lots of the waste, so many resources, as I mentioned earlier as well. So you can see how much there are. And then community strengths, generosity, cooperation, readiness to learn. There's so much that is there. And they do it. They all help each other. And then intangible reserves, traditional skills, innovative use of common materials, ownership through creativity, age-old crafts, what have you. There's just so much that is there that we use. And you put it all together, it's a kind of such a rich palette that you really don't need anything else. It takes time. You have to rely on them. They have to save those little bits every day, like 50 rupees a day, which is 1/6 of a euro, or 100 rupees a day, which is 1/3 of a euro. That's what they're saving to be able to make their own structures, and they go from one stage to the other, from food security to their basic needs, toilets, one-room houses, then go on to even forestation, land regeneration, trying to save themselves from floods. So these are my women, always in the lead. They're the ones who take on with determination, and they're the ones then organize, and they're able to get it done. But men are not sidelined. They're there too, but women are always the ones who go forward, because they're the ones who need privacy. They're the ones who need dignity. They're the ones who need a better lifestyle for their families and themselves. So they're the ones who will always go forward with doing everything. And then this is a slide I thought I'd show you. I don't know whether you can see what's going on here. Basically, there's quite a lot of funding that's being generated by people who had their savings, and now it was not in the economy, but now it's become part of that local economy. So altogether, because so much has been built already, so many 200,000 families we've reached already, which is 1.4 million people. And already, just by paying to get to understand or know how to do things, they paid enormous amounts. I don't know whether you can read the figures, but I think they're all converted into euros. So you can see that gradually how much more the whole thing has become. And then now the houses are being built, so there's more and more money coming into circulation that nobody knew. And then there's a whole economy that's now beginning to really flourish. And everybody is now being able to earn something or the other. So we estimate that approximately 1330 million or 4.38 million euros would have been brought into circulation, which was entirely untapped. Nobody knew it existed. So my last slide, implement 4 zeros. 0 carbon, 0 waste, 0 donor, or then make it at least low cost, which leads to 0 poverty, for saving the planet and saving humanity through humanistic humanitarianism using barefoot resource economy economic model. Thank you so much. I'm most grateful. Thank you.
Hi, hello, Elvis Paul, and welcome to the World Around Radical Repair, this conference that's taking place in Milan. We're so thrilled that you can join us from Addis Ababa. Can you say a few words of introduction, and we'll get into the conversation?
Yes, thank you very much, Beatrice. Thank you very much for this invitation. I'm so excited to be able to take part in this very innovative idea. It's unfortunate that I cannot be in Milan with you, but I'm very sure that next time we'll be together. So my name is Elvis Tangem. I work for the Africa Union Commission I'm responsible for sustainable land management, and I'm managing the Great Green Wall Initiative, which is one of the Africa Union flagship programs with the objective of enhancing sustainable management, land restoration in the drylands of Africa. And Beatrice, when we talk about the drylands of Africa, we are talking about 60% of the 30 million kilometers landmass that is Africa. Yeah.
So, Elvis, when we first thought about the idea of radical repair, the Great Green Wall Initiative was one of the first projects that came to mind, because it is just such an immense and ambitious program. It's so all-encompassing. It delivers so much about what architects haven't achieved so much of in the past, which is radical change. And I wondered if you could first start with explaining a little bit about the conditions that are in this the desert regions of Africa, in the Sahel. Can you explain, like, what's the context, and why did we need to have the Great Green Wall Initiative?
Thank you very much, Beatrice. I think it's imperative for our audience to understand the challenges of extreme climatic conditions in the Sahel. First of all, the Sahel, as you know very well, is a huge landmass of over 700 to 800 million hectares of land, and it crosses across the continent and is the threshold, the southern part of the Sahara Desert. So the Sahel is an area of what we can. It's an area of extreme weather conditions, Beatrice. This is also an area with almost 500 million people. So you can imagine, and also an area with the fastest demographic population rate in the world. So some of the key challenges that you can get in this area is the first of that of climate variability and change. You know, here we are talking about climate change is directly impacting the Sahel, you know, and this started right in the 70s and in the 80s. Here we'll talk about land degradation and desertification. Being at the front line of the Sahara Desert, the Sahel is hit by the extreme conditions that you could find in the Sahara Desert. You know, so we are talking about land degradation. We are talking about manifestation of drought and dust storms that is impacting the lives and livelihood of this over 400 to 500 million people. We are talking about extreme rains. You know, Beatrice, we usually have about, you know, you can have 200 millimeters of rainfall in 2 days, and then that will be the end of the rainfall for the next months or almost a year, as you can see in the Horn of Africa, which is part of the Sahel. And then you have a temperature increase. The impact of climate change is exacerbating the fluctuation of temperature in this region. We are talking about an area which has seen about 1.5 times increase in its temperature. The increased temperatures is a huge challenge in the Sahel. You know, other challenges that you have is issues to do with loss of, and I think when you put extreme weather conditions, extreme rainfall, extreme drought, and then you can look at the short and the long-term impacts. The long-term impact and the short-term impact is loss of biodiversity. Beatrice, we are talking about an area where almost 70 to 80% of the population depends on perennial agriculture. They depends on open range land for pastoral agriculture. They depend strictly on rain-fed agriculture for those that are involved in agriculture. So fluctuation in temperature, high rainfall in a short period of time, the challenges of not being able to time as it used to be. We used to know that rainfall starts in March and can end around August, but this time it's no longer the way. The haphazard nature of rainfall has completely destroyed the farming of these areas. And when you look at also the issues of land degradation, and you put into context the fact that many of these people depends on climate-related activities like rangeland, like pastoralists to feed their over 1 billion animals. I'm talking about sheep, goats, cows, camels, donkeys that are the main stay of these people. And then you put those that are involved in rain-fed agriculture in a degraded land. You realize that there's a serious issue of competition over the dry lands. If you look at the example, Beatrice, if you look at Lake Chad, for the past 6 decades, Lake Chad has lost 93% of its 25,000 hectares of land, of water body. And if you put that about 50 million people have been depending on this lake for their life, for fishing, for farming, for irrigation, for rangeland, for feeding of their animals, and for transport, for everything. And suddenly this lake has reduced by 93% in the past 6 decades. You can just imagine the impact on food and nutrition security. You can imagine the impact on employment and wealth creation. So this area is an area that have been beaten hands down by extreme weather conditions that is being exacerbated by climate change. And on top of these scarcities, these challenges that they have, Beatrice, it has led now to serious socio-economic and political issues. Some of the most fragile states are found in this region. If you look at Niger, you look at Chad, you look at Burkina Faso, you look at Mali, you realize that the issue of conflict, the issue of conflict in this region is caused by the complete destructions of the systems, the agricultural and the food systems in this region. I know you are in Italy now, Beatrice. Last 2 weeks, we had Lampedusa, a small island, receive over 10,000 migrants. And our statistics show that most of these migrants come from the dry lands of Africa, from Somalia, from Eritrea, from Ethiopia, from Sudan. And then if you look critically, you see that most of these areas are also impacted by serious long conflict. If you look at the Darfur region, the main problem in the Darfur region that underlines the state fragility in Sudan today is the conflict between the farmers, the indigenous farmers, and the graziers, that because of the dwindling, the shrinking of the pastoral rangeland, the shrinking of water bodies, and the shrinking of fertile lands. You know, so the climate change has direct impact on these social factors. That is why young people in the Sahel, they have two options when their livelihood has been destroyed. You either migrate to the nearby cities, or you migrate through the Sahara Desert and you look for greener pastures in Europe, or you join the other people fighting, or you join the ACME, the terrorist groups that have found a very fertile land for recruitment of young people, terrorist groups, bandits. So these are all linked to the fact that climate change has exacerbated serious fluctuation in the weather that the people can no longer master as it used to be yesteryear. So the Sahel is a huge challenge today, and that is why the Great Green Wall was created in 2005, you know, many of these states have been working to through isolated or national programs and projects to combat these extreme weather conditions. But it has not been working because such a huge project, such a huge problems as I described cannot be handled by one country. So that is why the heads of state of the continent sat together and said, look, we need to do something together. So that is how they created this Pan-African Sustainable Land Management and Restoration Initiative called the Great Green Wall.
Elvis, for that, and in a nutshell, how would you describe it? So all of these Pan-African countries have come together. It has to be addressed as it's a worldwide problem, as you said. There's an interconnectivity between what happens in the Sahel, what happens in Milan, what happens all over the world. It's impossible to disconnect all of these activities, and they're all related, of course, together. Could you explain really succinctly what is the Great Green Wall? What is the hope for the Great Green Wall? And what exactly are you, how much progress has been made so far?
Look, the Great Green Wall is a program, it's a radical...
Not a wall. It's not a wall. It's a huge, enormous master planning vision, if I'm correct.
It's a huge endeavor covering I will tell you today, in terms of statistics, we are targeting a total of 900 million hectares of land. In the Sahel and the Sahara region, we are targeting almost 800 million hectares of degraded land, and also land that we want to bring in degradation neutrality. In the Southern Africa region, we are targeting 220 million hectares of degraded land. These are lands that are around the Sahara region, the north and south of the Sahara, and these are lands that are found in the southern region, in the Kalahari and the Namib Desert. So that is how huge the whole idea of the Great Green Wall is. And the activities that we are doing at Beatrice is everything to do with land restoration. We are doing agroforestry, we're doing climate smart agriculture, we are doing forestation and afforestation, we're doing sustainable rangeland and pastoralist practices. We are introducing energy transition, because as you know, this area itself is not very poor in terms of natural resources. The Sahel itself is very rich. What has happened has been systematic lack of investment in this region from the colonial period up till today, you know. So the Great Green Wall has come as a Pan-African program. It started with the countries in the Sahel. I'm talking countries from Dakar to Djibouti, and today we have expanded to Eritrea, to Somalia. And in the past few years, we extended the Great Green Wall to the Southern Africa region. That is 85% also dry and has been battered by the incidence of extreme weather conditions. So the Great Green Wall is all about working together. 35 member states of the African Union working together to push sustainability, to work together to have a common vision, a common pathways through which they are going to combat these extreme weather conditions that has led to desertification, complete destruction of biodiversity, destruction of rangelands, and it's causing these climatic challenges has become existential threat. They are pure existential threat to the very existence of many of our member states. You can look at what is happening in Sudan and everything that's happening in Burkina. You can't separate that. And look, Beatrice, I have to come back to this issue of migration. Many people in the West don't understand what is happening. Many people just think that these are just young people that just want to take adventures. No, these young people have no choice. What are you going to do when your animals are dead, when your community is under conflict, when you can no longer go to school, and when you can no longer work and you cannot do anything? For us, for these young people, Beatrice, is a matter of honor. For us as a young man, your honor comes from how do you feed your mother and your young ones and your father. If you cannot do that, you are better be dead. And so I go to the Sahel, to Niger, to Zander, to Agadez, where these young people, the principal routes that young people take to go to Europe. And they tell us, bro, look, we're already dead. So going into the desert and crossing the Mediterranean Sea, we choose how we are going to die. Either we're going to, and you can't stop them. Bring them back and they will go back because there will still be no opportunities for them. So I think this is a clarion call for those who are listening to me this evening to understand that the challenges of climate change and the impacts of climate change can not be ignored. Africa might be receiving the huge impact of climate change, but it is good to mention that Africa itself, when you look at carbon emissions, Africa is below 4%. So 96% of the world is polluting, and the 4% is feeling the impact, Beatrice. So this is a huge and complex endeavor that the African Union and all its partners are trying to do in this member state, Beatrice.
Elvis, Paul, thank you so much for sharing this with us. We're absolutely honored to have your voice, and we're so looking forward to seeing the next steps of the Great Green Wall Initiative and seeing all the incredible work that you're doing. And hopefully you can come back and join us at the World Around next time.
Yeah, I think just to conclude, I know there is no time, Beatrice, but I need to really say your whole idea of radical repair, the whole idea of radical repair and looking at design, it falls squarely on what we are doing. Great Green Wall is a radical endeavor. It is business unusual. It is about, as they say, taking the bulls by the horn. So the whole idea of radical repairs resonates very much, and the whole idea of design, as you were saying, and architecture lies at the heart of the Great Green Wall, because we needed to change the thinking and we needed to bring innovation, change the design of how countries were doing things, and be put in front bold, innovative, fearless design. And we, as Thomas Sankara said, we are daring to reinvent our future. Yeah, it was good to put this into the context of the radical repair and the design and architectures that you will be discussing in this event, Beatrice.
Thank you so much, Elvis Paul. I'm going to do a little clap from here.
Benvenuta sul palco. Please welcome to the stage Wenyu.
大家好，我来自中国杭州，很高兴接受这个邀请到这里来给大家分享我们的工作。我今天想要讲的题目是关于材料的更新。
Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. I'm glad to share our works, our studio's works. Thank you for invitation. I'm from Hangzhou, China, and the title of my presentation is Renew Building Materials.
这是我们的工作室，非常小，叫业余建筑工作室，是非常个人的一个工作室。
This is our amateur architecture studio in Hangzhou. It's very small. It's our very personal one.
我想分享给大家的是，我们从什么时候开始关注材料回收材料的使用。
What I want to share is when we started to understanding and using the renew materials. It was in 2000, so that was the first time.
这是第一次我们亲手建造使用回收的材料。
That was the first time we constructed by my own hands by using recycled materials, and that experience led to an important change in our basic concept and site consciousness in architecture.
可以看到，我们使用的这个夯土是从其他艺术家的基地回收来的。
You can see in this slide, it was in the first time we were invited to an international sculpture exhibition, and that door is made with the leftover scrap materials.
右边地上的黑色的瓦是当时杭州的河坊街正在拆除建新的街道，我们从现场回收来的材料。
On the left, on the right, sorry, you can see a path built with black tiles recuperated from demolition sites in Hangzhou.
这是我们的周边的场景。那个2000年左右的时候，中国正在快速的城市建设过程当中，到处都有这样的拆毁现场。
So back to 2000, in that background in China, so it was so common to see that kind of scenes in every part of cities, everywhere around me. There's scenes like that, ruins, cities, demolitions, buildings are being replaced.
所以我们想，我们能做些什么呢？
So we are facing that kind of ruins, and our thought was what we can do.
我们是不是有可能从中国乡土建筑传统中找到更有智慧的建造方式，破解城市急速发展与乡土建筑延存的僵局呢？
So in our studio is mainly concerned with whether it's possible to find a wiser way to construction from the Chinese rural traditional construction to break the emerged stagnation derived from the fast urban development and the rural building hangovers.
所以在那个时候，我们开始带领我们的团队做了大量的调研。你们可以看到，这些乡土的传统建筑上，他们使用了大量的回收的和自然的材料。
So leading the team, we went to these villages in China. We did a lot of research, and we used traditional rammed earth using in the old buildings.
可以看到有这个夯土，还有回收的砖石，还有一些木结构的做法。
So traditional buildings with recycled tiles and bricks, and also wooden materials.
所以我们在想，对中国传统乡土建筑来说，材料永远是第一位重要的事情，材料决定了做法。
So in our thought, to traditional Chinese earth building, materials is always the most important issue. Material decides the construction method.
下面我分享几个过去20年间我们工作室做的几个和可持续材料使用可持续材料有关的项目。
So I'd like to share with you in the next slide some projects that our studio did with sustainable materials.
这是2001年到2007年之间，我们设计和建造的中国美术学院象山校园。
First of all, from 2001 to 2007, in Xiangshan campus, from China Academy of Arts.
我们使用了回收的瓦和砖，差不多用了有800万片。
So in all these buildings, we are using recycled tiles and bricks for 8 million pieces.
但是我们设计和建造了全新的校园。
And we rebuilt all the Xiangshan campus in China Academy of Art.
这张看到的是都使用回收的砖。
So in this pic, you can see all the new bricks using in that picture.
这个是俯瞰象山的校园全景。
That's a bird eye view of the China Academy of Art in Xiangshan campus.
2006年，我们在建设和设计这个校园的时候，我们参加了威尼斯双年展，把这个设计的片段和建造的片段带到了威尼斯，给大家分享我们当时的思考。
And in 2006, during the realization of that project of the campus, we brought part of that to Venice to participate in Biennale. And I'm happy to share here our thoughts and pics about that moment.
这是第二个分享的项目，是2008年建成、对公众开放的宁波博物馆。
That's the second project I would like to share in 2008, Ningbo in Zhejiang Province, the Ningbo History Museum.
这是我们在设计之前对这个区域做的调研，可以看到他们传统的建筑里使用了大量的回收材料。
So, as you always, we did a lot of research, and you can see only tiles and bricks, all recycled.
这是我们使用回收的材料，但是用全新的设计做的宁波博物馆的立面。
All redesigned, but everything is bricks and tiles.
这个可以看一下当时建造的现场。
That is a picture of that inside construction site.
这是建成以后的宁波博物馆的。
This is that museum in the final moment.
下面分享一个项目，是在2010年。这个项目很特别，因为我们在2000年使用过这个夯土之后，这是再一次在新的建筑上使用夯土技术，但是这个技术已经是一个全新的技术。我们和联合国教科文组织合作，使用了一个新的夯土技术。
This project was very interesting, and what I'd like to share with you because in 2010, Till Hill, we collaborate with the UNESCO laboratory by using a new technology on round Earth.
这个是建造的场地。这个项目很特别，因为所有的夯土的土就来自于这个场地本身。
And we used around the earth bamboo and wood. Very interesting because all the around the earth was specific from the traditional village in that specific site.
这个是在做夯土的现场。
And that's the picture from that specific construction site.
这个项目还有一个特别的地方，是我们第一次使用小的木材去建造大的结构。右边是可以看到传统的，左边是我们用新的技术来做的设计。
Yeah. The interesting thing is that it was the first time we experimented new technologies by using small pieces of wood to build big wooden structures. So on the left, you can see the new thing, and on the right, a traditional wooden structure.
这个是建造好了之后，我们可以看一下。
The final look, you can see.
里面有夯土和木结构。
Round earth and wooden structure.
我们是希望所有的设计是新的，材料是从传统中来的。
We do hope new design combined with material come from traditional architecture.
再可以看一下，
Let's take a look.
这里又出现了一个新的材料，是红色的，是我们回收的钢片。
So here we can see some new material are recycled and is red. Yeah, they are inox steel.
非常的漂亮，它实际上是在中国这个是作为垃圾的。
Oh, they're beautiful, but they are like recuperated because they are just throw away.
这个是建造好了之后。
The final moment.
下面分享一个博物馆、美术馆和档案馆群的项目，这是在2010年到2014年设计，14年到17年建造的。
Let's take a look of the next project, Fuyang Culture Complex in Hangzhou. We started in 2012, and we finished the design period in 2014, and we ended all the construction period in 2017.
这个是当时我们做这个项目的时候，周边正在发生的。
And that's happening, the demolition around.
这可以看一下我们的设计图纸。
There's the design drawing, the rendering.
这是项目建造的施工现场，工匠们使用我们的设计图正在做施工。
That's the workers, they are doing how we are asking them to do from the studio.
这是我们在现场要求工匠们按照我们的要求做的式样墙。
There's a simple mocha that we are asking them to do by example from the studio.
这是整个建筑的设计的图纸。
And this is the complex rendering.
看一下建造完成之后的状态。
Let's have a look of the final moment,
这
final
个
peak.
屋顶上使用的那个红色是一种工业机制的回收瓦。
So on the roof, we can see it's built with the recycled stones with a red renewed industrial tiles.
可以看到这个立面也是使用同样的材料。
And also the floor is built with the same material.
下面我讲一个最新的我们的一个项目。这个项目很特殊，是在这个疫情的3年设计和建造的。
Let's go to the most recent project. In the latest 3 years, I mean from 2019 to 2022,
杭州国家版本馆，我们也使用了夯土技术和木结构，但是在这个项目里，我们增加了2个材料：青瓷和青铜。
Okay. So in these archives of publication and culture in Hangzhou, we used round earth and wood as well, but we add celadon and bronze.
我们把过去在其他项目中使用的经验，在这个项目里应用。
We add all the experience we accumulated in before to this project.
我们希望能够使用的是自然的材料和真实的建造。
We did hope to use natural material, but we did also really want to do the real construction.
这可以看一眼建造好之后的照片。
Have look about how the final moment was.
这个也是在现场对工人进行夯土的培训，因为每一支施工的团队，实际上他们都是全新的，我们需要教他们。
Yeah, every time we have to do the training program with the new workers.
这可以看到，这个是夯土的施工现场。
This is a specific moment in the construction site.
这个是建成之后可以看到。
That's the main room in that library, that is made with created beautiful nuances with lights and shadows.
这个就是那个青瓷，我们在这个项目里第一次试验的材料。
So celadon is the new material that we experimented in that project.
通常它是用于我们家里的器皿，就是吃饭的盘子，或者是茶具等。
From ancient times, we are used to see in China celadon as material used to homeware, so tea cups, plates, right?
对。这个技术最早是在1000年前宋代的时候就有的。
So this is an ancient technique that did exist in 1000 years ago in Song Dynasty.
但是用在这样的建筑上是第一次。
That was the first time that in the modern society we used in the construction technology.
这是我们跟当地的工匠师傅一起改造这个窑烧制出来的。
So we have to deal with the artisanal, the traditional one, very experienced, and we found together the way to build the new tiles and bricks, the new way to make materials with celadon.
如果大家有机会去现场，这个材料非常的漂亮。
I hope you can really go to that side because in presence is so beautiful.
它会根据天光不断的变化。
Because with the natural light, it continues changing.
在这个项目里，我们也是大规模的使用了小的木结构做大的跨度。
So we are continuing using little structures to build big structures.
大家可以看一下。
Can take
大结
a
构，
look
这个结构有差不多100米长，
100
没有柱子。
100 meters long without columns.
这里我们还使用了另一种从传统的木结构学习来，但是全新的桥梁结构的木结构。
So from the bridge structure, we learn how to build this kind of construction to create a pavilion.
可以看一下，这个是建成之后的这个状态。
That's the final moment.
最后，我想说，我们通过不断的实验材料的可持续使用，竭尽全力去完成每一个作品，去探讨自然与人工、传统与现代、手工与机器，并修复它们之间的关系，为未来留下足够的我们今天想要传达的信息。谢谢。
In conclusion, I would like to say that by constantly experimenting with the sustainable use of materials and doing our best to complete each piece, we explore nature and artifice, tradition and modernity, handmade and machine, and repair the relationship between them, leaving enough messages conveyed today for the future. Thank you.
谢谢。
Benvenuto sul palco. Please welcome to the stage Joseph Grima.
Good afternoon, good evening. Fantastic to be here, and really, I must say, humbling and inspiring to be speaking among so many great, really thought leaders in this field. I wanted to bring, from the perspective of a small practice based here in Milan, Space Caviar, some reflections on one of the kind of central topics that I think has been emerging through these presentations, which is the topic of depletion, how we as a practice can go beyond the dependency on resources that are completely finite. And in the past days, I spent quite a bit of time in Eindhoven, and in the past days putting together this presentation, I was kind of working away at my desk, and in the background, there was this process, quite a surreal process of the dissection, dismemberment of a building taking place in the background. And it kind of struck me that in many ways, this spectacle that was occurring just outside of the window it really amounts to, in many ways, the state of what we consider as a profession repair today. This is really actually about as good as it gets. And in fact, it's the result of many years, many decades, in fact, of hard work on the part of policymakers to make sure that all of the refuse and everything that's left over at the point when the building is no longer needed doesn't simply get thrown into landfill, but is taken apart and sorted into material components, and then hopefully can make its way back into the flow, the stream, material stream of construction. And in a way, that's great. I mean, it's really amazing and fantastic that this construction and demolition waste, what we know as CDW, has been really recognized as a very important topic, especially like here in the European Union. It's regulated through the Waste Framework Directive that attempts to really kind of think about material flows. But at the same time, I think it's also a little bit sort of demoralizing that that's about as far as we can get. It's, I think in the context of this conference, it could be defined as unradical repair. It's simply about trying to limit the damage. And when you start to think about this, it becomes evident that this idea of buildings as something that are absolutely not reusable, but that are in a way part of a category of objects that simply get thrown away at the end of their life cycle, something that's really built into our culture as a profession, to the point that this image, anybody who's studied architecture probably knows it. It's the moment of the end of the history of modernity, according to Charles Jenks, the demolition of the Pruitt-Ego apartments in St. Louis in the US. That we spend a lot of time in reflecting on what that means for the history of architecture, but very little on why that is automatically the default end that architecture should meet, that demolition is actually kind of its natural destiny at the end. And so in a way, looking at this process of kind of understanding why we get, what leads us to think about this as something that's actually quite normal, is obviously, it's something that goes really deep into the sort of ethical and ideological roots of what we understand as architecture. And I think that it's important to kind of point out that in a way, it's not something that's always been this way. It's something that is very much the product of a certain understanding of architecture, a certain framing of architecture, which is that of late capitalism, of the advanced economies within which we live, which of course are very much dependent in terms of the engine of growth, in terms of the production of growth within a larger economic context, also in terms of employment. I'm thinking specifically about Italy, for example. Here in Italy, at least 1.5 million are directly employed in the construction industry. So it's very important that the wheels of this are kept turning and that we keep moving. And that all of this is obviously dependent, the fact that we can invest so much of our energy and so much of our resources in such an ambitious apparatus of construction and deconstruction, regardless of what happens to these materials, what happens to all the byproducts of this, is actually really, I think you could say, the product of a very specific set of conditions, which are also directly kind of intermingled with the moment in which we live historically, which is that of an advanced, technologically dependent society in which an illusion of abundance or of unlimited access to resources was being created. Thanks to technologically mediated extraction, we're able, the material itself, like the ability to extract it, is absolutely not the limit, the way that it has been historically. What is the limiting factor, if there are any, are perhaps in policy or to be searched elsewhere. But the technology is there to, and this is Carrara, not so far from here actually, in northern Italy, which is really, I think, kind of synonymous with one of the key materials of Italy. But if we look much further back, until relatively recently, not that much more than 100 years ago, extraction was something that was deeply manually dependent. It was really something that for many, many centuries made materials pretty scarce. There was absolutely not the illusion of abundance or of unlimited access to resources. And this was really a driving force within the development, within the history of architecture in the peninsula of Italy. And I think you could even look at Italy as a laboratory of a completely different approach, which was that of an architecture based on scarcity, an architecture based on reuse, an architecture based on continual adaptation, such as this amazing site in Rome, San Nicola in Cartier, which is a combination of 3 Roman temples, a prison, and all sorts of other stratified programs that accumulated over a period of over 1,100 years. This building continued to evolve and continues, I mean, obviously even today, continues to evolve. But it's not just in Rome, it's really throughout this is just around the corner from where I live in central Italy. These fragments and traces of adaptation and transformation are really ubiquitous. And the reason I talk about all of this is that also I think it's important to note that historically this led to the emergence of, in certain moments of history, specifically in the moment of decline of the Empire of Rome, which was something that didn't happen suddenly, it happened over quite an extended period of time. It led to an adaptation, a shift away from the kind of the classical approach to architectural composition that was obviously the Romans were very famous for, towards, with the emergence of a feudal economy in Italy, a kind of a diffuse post-empire reality, to a completely different architectural language, which was that of composition, others may say pastiche, but in any case, an architecture that was somehow opportunistic in the face of a scarcity of resources, so that needed to really think about the reuse of these. And this is something that is really deeply embedded in the vernacular language of the architecture of this peninsula as well, really up to a matter of a few decades ago. And when we think about the situation that we're facing today, where somehow we need to go beyond this illusion of abundance, an illusion of unlimited resources, there are probably 2 main ways in which we can go. One is through regulation, through laws, such as the Waste Framework Directive of the European Union that regulated the dismantling and the sorting of materials in the building I showed you at the beginning. And it's interesting to notice that, in fact, there's a very specific historical precedent in that, even in the Roman Empire that we were talking about before. In 458, the Emperor Majoriano passed a law that actually forbade the dismantling of monuments to reuse them in the purpose of new buildings. He understood the fact that this apparent abundance was an illusion. It wasn't unlimited, and sooner or later the whole of the architectural legacy would be dismantled. So there's the policy aspect, but then there's another aspect, which is that of what we aspire to as a profession, what we aspire to culturally. Aside from what the law allows us or doesn't allow us to do, what kind of work do we as creators, as designers, as architects, want to put out into the world? And this is obviously a very cultural question. It's a question that is dependent on what we're taught in school. It's dependent on who is held up to us as heroes, as examples. And this is the arena in which we have attempted to somehow try to intervene through the creation of somehow an ongoing research process, which I think we see as having no particular end, but that we've sort of collected under this moniker of non-extractive architecture, and started with a book that was published a couple of years ago. Sadly is out of print at the moment, but we're trying to see if we can get it back into print, which was an attempt to create a kind of a theoretical framework for the legitimation of a completely different understanding of what we should aspire to as architects today, which is completely not what, certainly me, I think maybe things have hopefully changed a little bit today, but certainly not the sort of thing that we were being taught as students of architecture, not even that long ago. And that instead somehow legitimizes in the eyes and in the ideals of an emergent generation of architects, many of the voices that we've heard this evening as well, like trying to somehow conduct a cartographic exercise that can show what is possible and what we could be aspiring to. And the second phase of this ongoing process is actually in this online archive, a kind of like I was saying, a global scale cartographic exercise of mapping all of the different approaches, all of the different contexts, all of the different practices that have attempted somehow to engage in this question of designing without depletion, that are completing. And this has just gone online a few days ago as a collaboration with Practice Lab, REARC Foundation. And the goal here is really somehow to be able to facilitate access and to create a network of practitioners who can somehow all contribute each a part, which may be very practical, it may be material-based, it may be more philosophical, to the emergence of a new definition of architecture. And through that, to also facilitate some questions that could also be interesting provocations that could be the basis for some sort of collective discussion about what we want to be aspiring to as a profession and what is needed from an architect today. So, for example, asking whether actually the creation of form is necessarily the most important thing, or whether maybe actually thinking about a role of stewardship of materials and of what if we were thinking about this idea of flows rather than being obsessed with the image that will be resulting from all of this. And many of the projects are, it's not necessarily, I mean, a lot of them are maybe what we could understand as vernacular architecture, attempting also referencing a little bit what Professor Lari was saying earlier on, the idea that we need to uphold different models that don't necessarily present certain material languages, but then many of them are actually really experiments in advanced technologies such as 3D printing, so don't necessarily need to be looked at simply as retrospective or an attempt to kind of rewind towards the past. And also trying to unpack a little bit or to escape a little bit from the corner that we've somehow maneuvered ourselves into, in which we tend to be kind of seen, designers and architects today tend to be seen as the ones who apply a sort of a veneer, an aesthetic veneer to the outside, but then maybe to really jump back into some of the more complex and nuanced issues that surround the built environment, including questions around integration, circularity, durability, adaptation, and so on. So this is also simply an opportunity to invite you to visit this website, the Non-Extractive Architecture website, and to delve around. We also accept submissions, and we're really excited to have built this framework, which over the coming years is going to allow us to really make a capillary cartography at a global scale. And I must say, and ultimately also to kind of ask some pretty fundamental questions about what we are actually doing. And I think that this is this question, I think even just here in Triennale, I think there have been 2 or 3 conferences this year that really ask questions like this that I think even a very short period of time ago would have been unthinkable. And yeah, and of course, the world around is very much aligned with this. And so, of course, we also have the Barefoot Social Architecture movements by Professor Lari, and even the world around itself, because I think that this is a fantastic platform that is really helping in this endeavor to offer an alternative model, a model that will encourage and inspire a new generation of architects to think completely differently from the generation that emerged looking at pictures of Pruitigo demolition. Thank you so much.
Hi, everybody. Well, that was session 1. Everyone can strap back, have a little kind of moment to unplug and stretch your legs. But thank you so much to Joseph, who I felt like really wrapped up that whole session and brought a lot of threads together. And we're very proud to be part of the Non-Extractive Architecture Directory. After the break, we'll have a 15-minute break, so please come back at 8:15. We will have a pretty amazing lineup for the second session. We have Aziba Ekio, who will be reading a poem from Nigeria. She's one of our Young Climate Prize winners. And we also have the amazing Junya Ishigami, Jeanne Gang, and Freddy Mamani, who has flown in from Bolivia. This is a session that I think will be a little bit of a contrast to this first session, which was much more about big picture systems and problems, and the second half is looking at very specific forms and ideas and kind of the physical representation of radical repair. Thank you so much for being with us for this session. Have a quick break and we'll see you back in 15 minutes. Thank you.
Modalità silenziosa I telefoni. In Focus Radical Repair, Session 2 will begin shortly. Please take your seats and silence all phones and devices. Benvenuta sul palco. Please welcome to the stage, Beatrice Galilee.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the second half of Radical Repair, a program held by the World Around and Fondation Cartier in collaboration with Triennale Milano. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you all here this evening, and hi to everybody watching online, where it may be morning or lunchtime or afternoon. In session 2, we're going to be exploring the visible branches of radical repair, asking what role built form, representation, and visibility can play. What formats can architecture take to usefully and additively respond to injustice, to inspire connectivity within communities, and interplay with new ecologies? At the World Around, our own form of radical repair takes the form of our Young Climate Prize, which has sought to reach out and support talented young people all over the world under the age of 25, and we connect each of them with their own mentor. This year was the first edition of the Young Climate Prize, and one of our winners, a Nigerian poet called Aziba Ekio, is really one of the most sort of inspiring opportunities for all of us at the World Around to learn how forms of repair may take writing and poetry and arts and culture, and we've commissioned her to write a short poem for this occasion. Also in this session, we have the incredible Japanese architect Junya Ishigami, who returns to the World Around. He was part of our first edition in 2020, and he will share new work and his responses to his relationship with nature, an absolutely singular approach. I think there's no other architect working in any way similar to Junya Ishigami today. We'll also have the incredible architect Jeanne Gang, who will join us from Chicago and Paris, where she's based, and she will be talking about how architecture may reverse obsolescence and use community and nature as forms of radical repair. Closing this session is the Bolivian architect Freddy Mamani, who advocates for an architecture embedded in the visual imagery of his native Amara people, a historically oppressed indigenous ethnic group that makes up 25% of Bolivia's population. After this presentation, we'll have an opportunity for you and everybody online to send in questions and have a short dialogue with our speakers. So I hope that you'll be able to stay for that. And I thank you all for being here, and welcome to Aziba Ekio for this short reading. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Aziba Ekio, and I'm connecting from Abuja, Nigeria. I'm so honored to be here. The World Around has become a family to me. Beatrice, Anna, Satomi, Dan, the whole team. Being part of the Young Climate Prize, anchored by the World Around, I was privileged to meet other young minds who are birthing solutions to tackle the climate change crisis through systems, technology, materials, communities, and of course, art. And so during this time, I worked on the project The Color Green, a multimedia poetry anthology addressing the seen and the unseen effects of climate change, but most importantly, leaving room enough for internal reflections about our current value systems. And I was mentored by the lovely Sumaya Valley, a founder and principal of Counterspace, and I had the opportunity to extend the project's impact and reach. I still believe, and I believe very strongly, that poetry is a potent medium in helping to solve the problems of our time. And so when the World Around approached me to pen down a poem on radical repair, I thought about a number of ways to go about it. For me, it was searching for the meaning of repair in context, the Nigerian context, the African context. And one of the images that resonated strongly with me was the community called Abunima Wharf, located at Port Harcourt's waterfront. I thought about, this community because it was home to my grandparents and my mother. And I remember being at my grandparents' home when I was very little. And so in writing this piece, I had to call my mom several times, just to glean from her experiences. And so this community was a shanty town because of the extremely poor living standards, the lack of basic amenities, high crime rates, depreciating buildings, but it was home to so many people. And their livelihoods existed there, but it was demolished in 2011 by the state government under the narrative of high crime rates. And so many people were displaced from their homes and the businesses were destroyed. And what we see here from this situation and that of so many communities alike is that void in the need to repair. Repairing in this context was rehabilitating. The same tools that were used to demolish and to displace would have been used to repair a place that was home to so many people. And so as I recite this poem, I hope it touches something within you. We were never supposed to love this place or call it home, taught to revere the water, black oil, swimming alongside boys who knew the smell of fare before they could walk, held arsenals before they could crawl. These streets formed through layers and years of unmindful litter and makeshift tar like Band-Aids plastered on an open wound, sagging rooftops atop zinc walls or concrete petitioning for paint. How did living become a sword to endure? Once in a while, if you're lucky, you find a house eager to pass as one of those city flats marked by interlocking tiles or towering fences, but never complete. Once in a while, you find a house whose window blinds are not spun with metal bars. Inside is a family that still sings to the wind, children chasing chickens to unlit nukes, running on bloodied knees, bruised from climbing rented hills. Who knew then that these streets would wash away like the sand dissolving into the water? This wharf my mother calls home, and her father before her. Before the machines came, the tippers and the trucks, the tractors and the trenchers, the heart crushers and the song stealers, how odd. The same machines that injure can repair. Thank you so much for paying audience. I hope this poem sparked something within you. And thank you again, the World Around and Fondation Cartier, for having me. Thank you.
Benvenuto sul palco. Please welcome to the stage Junya Ishigami.
Hi, I'm Junya Ishigami, architect based in Tokyo. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this place for the theme of radical repair. Today, I will try to describe through my project. In considering the future of the human culture, I believe it is very important to consider the distance from the nature. What kind of the distance from the natural environment can architecture as a human activity exist? This is what I would like to consider today. By considering the new distance between architecture and the nature, I want to repair the relationship between architecture and nature. In the first project, I will describe the possibility of semi-outdoor environment. This is the project to create the huge semi-outdoor environment with a single giant steel plate. It is a plan as an event space in the university. So this is a scenery within the architecture. People can be seen from the beyond the horizon. Sunlight enters through the many openings. Some places are bright, some places are dark, creating the various conditions of the light in the large space. On a sunny day, clear light fills the space. On a cloudy day, the light is dim. On rainy days, rain will enter through the many openings, creating the countless pillars of the rain inside the building. The scenery inside the building changes from the moment to moment, depending on the weather and the season and the time of the day. In a daily uses, the student can enjoy to sit down on the floor directly. The student can relax in this space. Some students enjoy to walk each other, and some students nap alone, and some students read a book. So this is a scene from the music event. Everyone sits down directly on the floor. Enjoy the music in the beautiful scenery. The new scenery with the view of the horizon, with the view of the horizon as a new architecture in the campus of the university. Students spend a comfortable time here as if they are surrounded by vast scenery. Through this project, we aim to create a new external environment inside of the architecture. By doing so, I thought I could see the architecture as a new landscape. The next project considers the relationship of the borders between landscape and architecture. This project is a food museum planned in China. The site is on the lake. This place is located nearby the entrance of the developing area. The new developing area is there, the left side out of this photograph, and also the parking lot is the corner of this photograph. And then the visitor can walk through this building to reach to the new developing area. So this building is both food museum and the visitor center for this area. The building will be planned with a length of 1 kilometer, according to the same size as this lake. The 1 kilometer long building stretched to the edge of the lake. The pillars are lightly placed on the top of the water in the continuous line. The glass is installed between pillars. There is some small opening under the glass, so water of the lake leads to the inside of the building. Water flows into the building. the scenery of the lake outside the building and the scenery of the inside of the building, both are integrated into continuous landscape. This is the space nearby the entrance. This is the very wider space. The width is 20 meters. The people can enjoy to walk through this building to reach the new developing area. I wanted to create a new scenery inside the building. The inside landscape continue to the outside, and then people can feel the very big scenery inside the building, and then this landscape making the new outside space inside the building. The bar scale of the building blend into the bar scale of the landscape. Through this project, viewing the architecture and the landscape as an equal relationship, I wanted to reinterpret the boundary between landscape and architecture. The next project considers the relationship between architectural orderliness and the landscape. Our client is owner and chef of restaurant. This is a project to create his restaurant and residence. This is the site. The client wanted the building with the old atmosphere in which restaurant guests could enjoy their meals in the old atmosphere building. However, this project would require construction of the new building. So I wondered what the oldness of the architecture is. I decided to think about the definition of the oldness of the architecture. In general, the new buildings are completely artificial. From there, time passes, they become the withered, and they become the ruin. Eventually, the ruined building returns to the landscape in the nature. In other words, the new building that start out as a completely man-made project, man-made object, and end up in the nature. Considering this, the oldness of architecture is somewhere in between man-made and the nature around this. In this sense, oldness of the architecture can be defined as a something intermediate condition between man-made object and the landscape. So I decided to design the architecture in a way that is halfway between artifact and the landscape. This is the site. First, dig a hole and pour the concrete into these holes. Eventually, these holes will be the structure, and the earth area will be the space. This is after pouring concrete. So these three islands become the courtyard. When concrete had hardened, dig it up. We dig up the structure as if we were excavating an ancient ruin. The result is intermediate construction between man-made structure and the landscape. Although this is a new building, the structure has an old atmosphere as if it had existed for 10,000 years. This is a completed building. So this is the entrance. This area is a little bit dark, but the inside of this building is very bright. Although this region is a residential area, the environment of this building looks like being in the nature. The old opening will be fitted with glass to make an inside space. This is the bathroom in the residential area. This is the corridor leads to the living space. This is the living area. So through this project, we create the structure which had the old atmosphere. In the beginning, that we were able to create like this, the old atmosphere structure in the beginning. This building had some passage of the time in the beginning. Finally, I will describe the possibility of creating environment between nature and man-made. This is the project to create a new garden. This is the aerial photograph of the site. There is some old hotel in the beautiful forest around here. The red part is the site of the new garden. The area of the red area is 60,000 square meters. This site is meadow now, and originally this site was a rice field. The yellow area, this yellow part is the area for the new hotel extension. So the existing condition of the yellow area is now forest. The area of the yellow area is also 60,000 square meters, the same size as the red area. So, as I said, the yellow area is the area of the new hotel extension. So the current condition is the forest. However, these trees will be cut down because of the construction. Therefore, we decide to move the old tree in this forest to the next site. So this is a heavy industrial machine which can move the big trees. Using this machine, all of the tree move to the next site, like this. And then we create a lot of pond in between a lot of trees. This is the image before pouring the water in each pond. Each pond is waterproofed, so the trees that cannot live in the nearby the water can coexist with the water. So you can see like this the pipes. All of the pond is connected, and then from the next river, the water flows in this site, and then water is going through the old pond, and then going back to the river. This system is the same as a rice field. So 15 years ago, this site was a rice field, and 100 years ago, this site was a forest. Both are superimposed each other. And the shadow and the water and the land and everything is mixed in this place. All of the things is blur. The grass and the plants and the stone and trees, everything is reconfigured from this side. So none of the plants, none of the flower, nothing is planted here. So all of the plants have grown as the weed. Depending on the season, the scenery is changing. This is the scenery of the winter. it is going to snow, the white ground and the black pond create a monotone view. So this is another nature. This is a kind of the mixing environment, artificial environment and the natural environment. So through 4 projects, I will explain. I explain the new relationship of the distance from the nature. So the first project is the possibility of the semi-outer space. The next project is the possibility of the border between nature and the architecture. And also third project is think about the oldness of the building. The third project, fourth project is think about in-between environment, nature and the man-made. So through these 4 projects, I want to consider some possibility to think about a new distance from the natural environment. By doing so, I believe that it is possible to repair the relationship between nature and architecture. Thank you.
Benvenuta sul palco. Please welcome to the stage, Jeanne Gang.
Hello. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. Thank you to the Cartier Foundation and to World Around. I wanted to talk about obsolescence, but also about this radical repair that's needed in relationships in general. The relationships with our habitat, our planet, and the relationships with each other. And a lot of the work that I'll show is concerned with these things. I come from Chicago. It had a very famous plan in 1909 by Daniel Burnham and Bennett to lay out the organization for this big city on the lakes. The lakes, the Great Lakes, are it is the largest freshwater ecosystem in the entire world, and it actually has about 21% of all fresh surface water on the planet right here. And that's why industry located there. So I've been fascinated with this overlay of the freshwater and the industrial history of the place where I started my architecture firm. What happened over the time was that this land became very polluted. So the big dots are kind of these toxic Superfund sites, and it became known as the Rust Belt. So really where all the steel production was coming from. And you have this kind of unnatural landscapes with the background. It's not a hill, it's actually a landfill, dumping and things like that. But you get a mixture of this overlay with natural systems because of the lakes. So I've been really interested in the fact that this city is on a migratory flyway. So it's called the Mississippi Flyway, and you get birds traveling miles and miles and miles coming through the city twice a year. The problem is, though, that with new buildings, all of our new architecture, we're putting these other species at risk that are sharing our cities with us. In one day during migration, these are birds that were collected after colliding with window glass that they cannot see. So I've been really interested in working on this problem for about 20 years, and there's a lot of solutions to that. But I think the main point I really want to say here is that to radically repair relationships with nature, we need to be nurturing and become allies in a certain way with these other species that we share our cities with. And in that process of becoming allies, we actually repair our relationships with each other. And that's really exciting when it starts to happen. So we've been developing solutions for this from an architectural standpoint, like screens and fritted glass and many things that you can do. And some of the projects that, every project kind of takes this on in its own way. This is the Writers Theater project, which has a kind of canopy walk, and people can walk out there at intermission, and as they walk around in this canopy walk, you can see that the screen of the wood is helping to reduce impacts with glass, but also if you look at the glass itself, there's a small dot pattern on there that also works really well for reducing bird strikes. So as we welcome more nature into our cities, we have to really think about these things of everyone that we share the city with. So when I first came to Chicago, it was true that they were still dumping sewage into the Chicago River, partially treated sewage. And this, you have this context of bad water quality, flooded basements, now with climate change, flash storms, rain bombs, invasive species making their way up to that wonderful ecosystem in the lakes. So the potential of all those problems, I think, is really like how to reinvent this post-industrial landscape. So one of the projects that I worked on with our team was developing a book to help the public become aware of what was going on with the waterway and how to renew it. And so what we provided in the book was some solutions, some images of what it might look like if we had a new kind of relationship with the water. And we suggested these steps of how to get there. And number one step was to give people access to the water. And the whole idea of that is to make it possible for people to be allies with us toward, and allies with the river itself. So that started to work. We built this boathouse along the river, which gives access to youth to use the river and adults as a boathouse and a rowing center. And it really had caught on. But the point is really, too, that you need architecture to help do this and make people excited to get there. It can't just be, it needs to be a good piece of architecture that's welcoming people to the riverfront. And that's what gets it started. So it's also a community center. It's a place where students do homework after school. So I bring all this up because I think it's really important to support these relationships between people and their environment. So these first projects on a kind of bigger scale really work to do that and actually radically change policy. So for example, after these boathouses started being built, the city voted to start to regulate that sewer water and then really improve the water quality. And then this whole army of supporters for the river after they started using it, this is 10 years in 2023, it's a completely different changed relationship with this waterway. And it's really moved it into a new phase. So those are the things that we try to do with connecting people to their environment. Another project where we did that was this old kind of urban pond that was designed as a kind of picturesque pond. So it's an idea about nature that is a constructed idea. It's man against nature. And it was kind of run down, so we took the opportunity when they asked me to design a pavilion there. Instead of doing that, we proposed redoing the pond into a habitat. And so really studied the water quality and made big progress on redefining this place and making it a real vibrant place where animals come to be. They're attracted to it. It's right within the Lincoln Park Zoo. So this is like, I always say it's like a zoo without cages where animals voluntarily come. But it's also for people. And here we see the first urban wildlife groups that were formed after this project was made. that are now creating a whole new generation of stewards of watersheds. And we can see how this is attracted. These are night cams that we have at the Lincoln Park Zoo Nature Boardwalk. And I mean, even large-scale mammals are coming to this place, which is pretty exciting to me. And then people are also documenting these species. So turtles on the left, birds on the right. There's a new kind of developed relationship with this natural environment. And we did design a pavilion, after all. It's actually the place it's the most popular place to get married in Chicago. But it is a place where, so relationships between people also take place. Spontaneously, other events started showing up in this. It's a very vibrant, very rich, biodiverse landscape in the city. I just wanted to also mention that it's really important to have people involved in this process in the design phase. This is the Mississippi River, the great Mississippi River. It's an incredible place. We worked with local community members and even high school students during the design process to get their input, and I think that really built a lot of allies for this project. As it went forward, this was the site before. It's kind of just a dike that is a piece of infrastructure, but as we move forward, we were able to get everybody to support this project. This just opened in Labor Day, so it's a place for people. The last two projects I just want to show, shifting to the architectural scale, is this idea of renewing and saving as much capacity in our buildings as we can. As we know, each building represents a chunk of carbon. And so I've been interested in trying to find new ways to describe ways of intervening with old buildings. This is a 3rd century mosaic representing grafting. So it's about people working together with nature to get tastier fruit, to resist diseases. It's always been a relationship with nature, and I think that's what we need to highlight. So I have a book that's going to come out that's about the art of architectural grafting. In that book, a couple of projects like this Museum of Fine Arts in Arkansas are featured. So far, I've had a few of these projects where people want to tear down a building like this. It's been added on over time. It's very confusing. 8 different additions, 8 different mechanical systems, 8 different structures. And what we did here was to try to find a way to intervene and make this thing work better and add capacity to it. So it's a kind of spine that comes down the middle of the building, revealing the original 1934 building. And so it's kind of just reinventing this building that really did not have a lot of personality, I would say. It was very closed from the outside, and trying to pull out the highlights of how it could be a new museum, art school, and theater school. And so all of the structure is working very closely with what's already there. I always tell students you have to kind of fall in love with the existing building, even if it's ugly, if you want to use it and bring new capacity to it. And it's very fun to kind of bring new life to a building like this. This is looking down the spine of the building, and really you could see how light and how it connects now to the area around it and to the park around it. And then finally, my last project to share is the Gilder Center, which is at the American Museum of Natural History. And it's a very famous institution in New York, which is a natural history museum right on Central Park, right, and very close to the park. The yellow dot is where they asked us to put a new wing. And, you know, to start this project, we really had to think about how people feel, what do people feel about nature, and why is that important now? And I think it really is important. Number one is, in the States, we have you know, there are people that don't even believe in climate change. So we have a lot of education to do. But I feel that sometimes it's because we have this separation between people and nature. So this project grafts into the existing building, as you can see in the darker plan there, to connect in with its existing flows and to make it more fluid, how people can move through the building and really start to explore and discover what they think is interesting. So as a floor plan, it's working with structure that's already there. It looks organic, but inside this floor plan there is a structure. It is made out of concrete and it sits on very specific points that we could use. And so in a way it's like a geological structure that holds up the building. We were inspired by these landscapes of discovery where forms are hollowed out, they're porous, you feel beckoned, you want to go explore. And to study this, we worked with blocks of ice, hollowing it out. We used digital tools, of course, but it was really about trying to find this language that could help people want to explore. So here you can see another model. You can see the minimal places we could land the structure down. So it's very much working hand in hand with our structural engineers. And to build it without using formwork was the goal, because we didn't want to build all this formwork, pour the concrete in, and then tear it all down. And so it's really done with this method of shotcrete, so building it out of rebar and shooting the concrete into it. You can see this is during construction, how the shotcrete started at the top, and then we pulled that out and worked our way down, so because it's creating kind of like an arch, and you can see this connection to the outdoors. It was really interesting to work in this kind of organic way, using everything that we could that was there, and really making people feel empowered to study nature in the way that they want. There's some spaces where the collections inside the building were revealed 100%. They were already there, but just no one could see into these massive collections. There's something like 18 classrooms in this building. There's a theater, there's a library, and it's really bringing a lot of these hidden functions out to the public. My favorite is really the insect exhibit. They've never been able to show insects before. So by enlarging some of the insect exhibits with our exhibit designer, or doing something as technically challenging as having leafcutter ants living and working in the building, it's really like a different level of understanding and appreciating nature. Of course, it's a building that connects with and has dialogue with the buildings around it, but mainly it's a departure in terms of how we understand nature and how we come to appreciate it. This is the exterior of the building as it comes to the park. And finally, just that the building should always make you connect to something larger. In this case, the grid of Manhattan, and even larger than that, it lines up with the street grid so that people can experience this Manhattan Henge, which is a planetary event. So what I love most about these projects is how people are becoming engaged with each other in these events, and then by extension with their environment. So it's repairing these relationships and bringing people closer together. Thank you very much.
Benvenuto sul palco. Please welcome to the stage Freddy Mamani.
Bueno, la verdad, muy contento, agradecer primeramente a la Pachamama, a las huacas que tenemos allá de donde vengo, de mi tierra de origen.
I'm extremely excited to be here. I want to firstly thank Pachamama, Mother Earth.
Y también agradecer a la Triennale de Milano, muy contento, la verdad, de poder llegar acá a Milán.
And also I want to thank Triennale Milano. I'm extremely happy to be here in Milan.
Bueno, antes que nada quiero presentarme, soy Freddy Mamani, soy el creador de la arquitectura de la ciudad del Alto.
My name is Freddy Mamani, and I'm the creator of the El Alto architecture.
Bueno, quiero preguntarles, ¿cuántos conocen Bolivia? ¿Pueden levantar la mano?
How many of you know Bolivia or have been to Bolivia?
¿El Alto?
How many of you know
¿Específicamente el Alto?
El Alto, specifically.
Ok, conocen un par de personas, ¿no? Qué bien.
A few
Bueno,
of you.
para que conozcan, voy a describir un poco de dónde se encuentra el Alto.
I'm going to describe a little bit what El Alto is and how it looks like.
Bueno, el Alto está más o menos a 4.100 metros sobre el nivel del mar. Está en Centroamérica. También se llamaba, era parte de la ciudad de La Paz.
El Alto was part of La Paz. It's in South America, and it's 4,100 meters above ocean level.
El Alto es una ciudad muy joven, tiene como ciudad 38 años y es considerada la segunda ciudad más poblada de Bolivia con más de 1 millón de habitantes.
It has over 1 million inhabitants, and it's considered the second more populated city in Bolivia. And it's only 38 years old, so it's a very new city.
La ciudad está conformada, en Bolivia somos pluriculturales, significa que tenemos varias nacionalidades, 36 culturas, entre esas la población aymara es la mayoritaria.
In Bolivia, we have 36 different cultures. We are a pluricultural nation. And within those cultures, we have the Aymara nation, and that's the largest in terms of population.
Esta ciudad está conformada por habitantes migrantes del campo a la ciudad.
And El Alto has been consolidated by people who came from rural areas into urban cities.
Quiero que conozcan lo que con lo que estoy trabajando, es la arquitectura neoandino llamado académicamente y artísticamente se llaman los cholets.
I want to introduce all of you to the neo-Andinian architecture, that's how the academia considers it, and the artistic term for it is cholet.
La nueva arquitectura andina, como llamado los cholets, cholet significa, es un término de dos palabras, la palabra chola y chalet. Palabra chola significa la mujer de pollera, ya es una mujer que viste pollera, su manta y su aguayo.
So cholet is a term conformed by two other terms. On one hand, you have chola, that are women with skirts, and on the other hand, you have chalets.
Okay. Esta arquitectura también proviene de lo que es Tiahuanacu. Tiahuanacu son las ruinas milenarias, una arquitectura milenaria como Machu Picchu, más o menos, que muchos conocen, y también los tejidos, esos tejidos coloridos ancestrales y algunos elementos naturales orgánicos del lugar.
To create this architecture, I draw from the ruins in Bolivia, the textiles, colorful textiles in Bolivia, and also regional elements.
Esta arquitectura que estoy realizando o que he innovado ha sido un proceso en función a su sociedad, a su cultura.
I've created this as a way to respond to what was happening in society.
Hemos empezado, como ven en pantalla, de las casas de barro o de adobe comprimido, también de las casas de adobe con techo de paja. Ese es nuestro origen allá de los aymaras.
This is our Aymara's architectural origins. So it's adobe houses and adobe with straw in rural areas.
Muchos se preguntan cuando voy a discursar, a hacer conocer lo que estamos haciendo. Bueno, yo nací ahí como en la pantalla ven, yo nací en esa casa de adobe con techo de paja y bueno, yo tenía que ir a estudiar 1 hora a pie de ida y de regreso para poder superarme en la vida, ¿no?
So this is where I come from. This was my childhood house, and it was made of adobe with a straw ceiling, and I had to walk 1 hour to school back and 1 hour to come back to my house.
Ahí vienen las ferias rurales, donde son las hiskatus, o sea, son pequeñas ferias, y los hachakatus, que significa las ferias grandes, pero ya en lo urbano.
The same process that happened with people from rural to urban settings happened with fairs and economic endeavors. So we come from what are the little fairs that are the shiskakatu to the large urban fairs that are the chakakatu.
La ciudad del Alto del pasado y la ciudad actual, ya incluso con los teleféricos más modernos, en 38 años ha cambiado esta ciudad radicalmente.
You can see how this city has changed from not being there to having its own telespheric in only a matter of 38 years.
Tenemos ahí en el lado izquierdo lo que es Tiahuanacu, esas ruinas milenarias, esa arquitectura milenaria, y los textiles en la parte central, esos textiles que utilizan las mujeres de pollera y nuestras autoridades originarias. Y en el lado derecho ahí tenemos los elementos de la región.
So coming back to where this architecture is drawn from, we have the Tiwanaku ruins that are millenary architectural tradition. We have the textiles that are worn both by the cholas, the women with skirts, as well as local government authorities, and the regional elements, plants and animals.
Y dentro de todo ese contexto global que les he explicado, ya viene un proceso más moderno, más radical frente a una evolución de las casas de adobe a las casas de ladrillo, actualmente a las casas de color.
So within that context, the city was transformed from adobe houses into brick houses and now colorful houses.
Como ven, hoy por hoy la ciudad del Alto va cambiando y a la vez cada propietario que ha migrado del campo a la ciudad, donde se ha comprado su lotecito, va construyendo su propio edificio, sin tener una zona selecta de ricos, ¿no? Aymaras.
As you can see, the city of El Alto is changing a lot. And what's particular about this city is that when an Aymara or a house owner moves into the town, they just pick a place and build their houses. So there's not a segregation within the town based of wealth. It's just scattered throughout El Alto.
Como vemos en la pantalla, es una arquitectura donde en el exterior tiene elementos ancestrales que tienen una filosofía que explicar.
As you can see from these images, the facades of the buildings have a symbologic meaning and a cosmovision that needs a little bit of explaining to do.
Estos edificios, como ven, El Alto se considera una ciudad muy joven donde las necesidades básicas es bastante, o sea, tiene mucha prioridad, pero la verdad es muy difícil llegar a toda la población porque es una ciudad pujante en crecimiento a nivel horizontal.
The city of El Alto is really interesting because it's growing mostly horizontally, and there's a lot of need, but also there's room for this type of radical architecture.
En el contexto de lo que es la filosofía aymara, tenemos usos y costumbres donde todo el edificio para nosotros tiene su ajayo, significa que tiene vida.
Within the Aymara cosmovision, we consider every building to have its own ajayo, which means that it has a life of its own.
Eso quiere decir que el edificio está dividido en lo que es el alajpacha, que tiene significado de las alturas del universo, y también la parte central es el acapacha, donde vivimos, donde compartimos este tipo de actividades y otras actividades, donde en el mancapacha, o sea, es el inframundo, las profundidades, donde está la riqueza, o sea, el negocio.
And buildings also transmit this cosmovision of three stages. So on top you have the alaxpacha, that is considered to be connected to the universe. In the center you have acapacha, that is where gathering happens, where all of us live and events like this take place. And below you have mancapacha, that is like the underworld and the underground.
También lo importante en lo que vamos construyendo, tratamos de hacer siempre algo simétrico, donde significa para nosotros la dualidad, el chacha warmi, siempre tiene que ser par.
Another important element for us is symmetry. Everything has to be dual.
Y además, esta simbología ancestral de Tiahuanaco hace que tenga significado. Los círculos, por ejemplo, representan en este caso a lo femenino, y los cuadrados, rectángulos, significa lo masculino, y por lo general en los edificios siempre represento con lo que es la chacana, la cruz andina.
These Tiwanaku symbologic elements that I draw from are, for example, the circle that represent femininity, square shapes or angular shapes that represent masculinity, and I also usually include the chacana, that is the southern star.
Estos edificios tienen su importancia en la parte económica. Como tiene vida, hace que los propietarios construyan, porque estos propietarios vienen del negocio, desde el área rural hasta el área urbano. Dentro de todo ese contexto hace de que sus edificios tengan ese concepto de que generen dinero.
So buildings have a huge economic and functional purpose as well for the people that owned them. Since these were migrants that came with their own affairs and their own economic endeavors, they tend to see these buildings as also a source of richness.
Eso significa que la funcionalidad se divide en lo siguiente. En la planta baja generalmente son tiendas, galerías comerciales, y luego encima 2 plantas viene a ser los salones para actividades culturales, sociales y festivos. Y luego, encima del salón, viene a ser lo que son los departamentos. Departamentos generalmente lo construyen en función a cuántos hijos tienen esa familia. Y luego, encima el pico, viene el chalet, donde el propietario vive.
This is why there's also a division in terms of functionality. So below you have the stores. In the center you have a common area where gatherings take place. Then you have a few floors of houses, usually meant for the children of the owner of the house. And then at the top of it, you have the cholet, that is the house of the owner.
Para mí es importante darle identidad a la ciudad a través de la arquitectura. Como ven, está en un constante crecimiento en forma vertical, pero vemos ahí en la fotografía donde la ciudad se va transformando constantemente, pero con una arquitectura con piezas únicas.
What is important to me is to create an architecture with identity in the city of El Alto that represents the city.
En El Alto y en otras partes de la ciudad o de Bolivia y el exterior hemos construido algo más de 100 obras. En menos de 20 años, yo creo esta arquitectura ha trascendido fronteras.
In the past 20 years, we've created over 100 buildings, unique buildings, and I think this architecture has transcending borders.
Como ven, este cholet está encima del edificio donde el propietario vive, o sea, tiene que tener ese confort necesario donde tratamos de captar la luz natural por su clima frígido en la ciudad del Alto.
Since El Alto is very cold, we usually try to capture as much sunlight as we can in the cholet. This is an example of a cholet. This house is placed on top of the building.
En los interiores ha sido bastante complejo para nosotros innovar materiales propios porque allá no tenemos mucha tecnología. Entonces, todas las obras están hechas artesanalmente con herramientas también muy artesanales, innovados con nuestros propios materiales.
It was very hard to innovate in the interiors as the materials are not so available, so we did a very artisanal work in every one of these buildings with collaboration from a lot of people.
Bueno, los cholets comúnmente conocidos tenían la funcionalidad, como les he explicado, pero lo resaltante era de que tenían salones y a la vez el propietario vivía encima.
As I told you before, my usual buildings were divided in a way in which the center was taken over by a communal area, and at the top we had a house.
Este es uno de mis últimos proyectos que hemos inaugurado hace una semana, donde la funcionalidad tiene un cambio muy radical.
This is my last building, and I radically changed what I was doing here in terms of functionality.
En la planta baja tiene un parqueo y encima 2 plantas tiene un salón, luego es un hotel, pero tiene temáticas de Tiahuanaco, de las alacitas. Las alacitas son piezas pequeñitas donde tiene un significado de abundancia. Si tú deseas tener un auto último modelo, compras pero en miniatura, o si quieres una casa, compras en miniatura, y también tiene un espacio folclórico.
So in this building, the functionality levels are completely different. So in the first level, you have parking garage, a parking lot, then you have a common area, and then you have a hotel, but the hotel itself is also divided into 3. So one of the floors is linked more to the ruins that we talked about in the beginning. The second floor has folkloric dance elements, and the third floor is based off this tradition of doing a fair, as the ones we also saw at the beginning, but miniature. So people buy, if they want something, they buy it, but in a miniature scale, and that gives the hope of achieving that in the future.
Por último, este edificio en la última planta ya está invitado a la sociedad, o sea, está un poco más dedicado a lo que es el turismo local y extranjero. Ahora en la cúspide puede disfrutar la sociedad, no el propietario.
And at the top of the building, we welcome everybody. So it's a restaurant, and it's not a place only for the owner, but it's a place open to the community and the society as a whole.
Cuando el extranjero o el nacional viaja y visita este espacio, puede encontrar elementos de lo que es Tiahuanaco, pero introducido un poquito más de color.
Anyone who enters the building will find Tiahuanaco elements and color.
Y a la vez tiene un espacio, este espacio que están viendo va a tener una galería de arte para los jóvenes que no tienen esa oportunidad de mostrarse al mundo, porque en la ciudad del Alto hay talento humano.
We are also making an art gallery to showcase the work of young artists in El Alto, because we want to tell the world that El Alto has artistic quality and talent.
Bueno, estas obras para mí son palacios andinos, palacios aymaras, y ahí vemos en obra blanca.
I consider these buildings Aymara palaces.
Donde estas columnas tienen la representación a lo que es lo femenino, por lo que son circulares.
These columns also have this idea of femininity in its roundness.
Y lo que representa también a la masculinidad, se podría decir.
And we also bring in masculine elements with this more angular columns.
Y como ven, es de color blanco, que a mí me encanta también, pero esa misma obra, ese mismo espacio, estamos tratando de cambiar a color.
So this is the same interior as the one in the slide before, but with a lot of color injected into it.
Bueno, son espacios bastante significativas en el sentido de que estos espacios son para compartir en sociedad, en familia, y se practica el Aini.
What's important about these spaces is that they're built for people to gather, and there the
Aini.
ID is practiced.
El Aini significa reciprocidad. Hoy te presto, mañana me lo devuelves, pero con interés.
ID means reciprocity. I lend you something today and you give it to me tomorrow with interest.
Eso significa, un ejemplo les voy a dar. Si uno se casa, toma matrimonio, invitamos a la sociedad, o sea, si yo me caso, les invito a ustedes, ustedes vienen con un regalo, por ahí me lo trae un auto, un Mercedes, pero yo al próximo año les tengo que devolver casi el doble, ¿me entienden? Y si hay mucha cerveza, también hay que devolver doble, pero eso no es para beber todo, sino ese significa, tiene un significado de abundancia.
So as an example, if I get married tomorrow and I invite every one of you and you'll give me a present, I will, next time I see you, give you more of that present, and not necessarily to you. So if you give me a lot of beer, I won't necessarily drink it all, but it means abundance, and I will reciprocate with the same or more.
Bueno, son espacios que he convertido para compartir en sociedad en una ciudad color ocre, en una ciudad muy aburrida, se podría decir, por el color, por su clima.
In a very ochre city, I've built these spaces of color for people to gather.
Bueno, en mi último edificio estoy ahí en el PROA, donde quiero decirles, teníamos un vacío en las universidades, con muchos horarios y carga de materia, se podría decir, dedicados a investigar arquitectura extranjera.
And with this image, I also want to say that we had a void in our academic systems. We spent hours and hours only discussing architecture from somewhere else.
Pero tenía yo una población, una gran población con una gran necesidad de identificarse a través de sus edificaciones, a través de su arquitectura en esta ciudad.
But I could see that the population living in El Alto had a great need to identify themselves with the buildings that they were going to live in.
Para esto logramos dar un cambio radical en la arquitectura.
And so we created this radical change in architecture.
Desde una ciudad para mostrar al mundo que sí podemos cambiar radicalmente recuperando nuestro pasado.
From this town to tell the world that we are able to transform architecture while keeping our roots on our past.
Frente a la modernidad en estos años.
Especially taking into consideration the advances of modernity.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Okay, muchas gracias.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
And thank you to our speakers tonight. It's been incredibly inspiring to hear the responses to what radical repair means in architecture today. And we've seen and heard such a wide variety of propositions and solutions that I hope we can continue discussing together in the future.
Absolutely, and I just want to thank my co-curator, Beatrice.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your collaboration and support. Thank you so much to the audience. We will continue the conversation in the garden with refreshments. If you'd like to join us, the entrance is on the ground floor here. We hope you can join the speakers and have an opportunity to talk with us too. I know it's been a very stimulating evening, and there's a lot to say and discuss.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, everybody. See you soon. Thank you. Thanks for having us. Thank you.